Hey, besties. We haven't just chatted in a while, the three of us. So here we are. It's our mid-year life review, life update, energy update. Thanks for being here, guys. Hello.
What's your name?
Y'all know my name by now. You know what? I will share my name in case you're new here. I'm Nichole, but for the rest of you, you guys know me by now. Hi.
Oh, jinx. When you said life review, for those of you who have not heard us talk about this on the podcast here and there, just mention it. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, Google NDE and life reviews on YouTube, and your mind will be blown.
I haven't done that, but I've heard about it.
It's something else. It's like, and those who have had NDEs, so like my mediumship teacher, Cheryl, she was on, check that out. From
What is an NDE for those that don't know?
Near-death experience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And she talked about it and how she was really angry because she, saw herself above her body upon having that experience, and obviously in a different consciousness, and how that NDE pretty much opened up her, it was her spiritual pathway to the work that she does now. So anyways, that is not what we're talking about today. We are talking about life, some important astrology updates, and the fact that 2024 is more than halfway done, and that is astonishing on its own.
Let the people know who you are.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Celeste. Gabby, G Money, depends on our relationship, I suppose. Gabs to those that I'm recording with.
To the real ones. You know who has also had an NDE? Scott from Beyond the Shadows when he was a little boy.
I feel like you've mentioned that to me. Yeah. And I feel like he's briefly spoken about it just like randomly when we recorded. But yeah, fact check me on that, guys.
It was wild. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we are just checking in because we've had a lot of guests lately. And I personally like to break it up a little bit. I don't know if you guys care. I don't think Gabby cares, but I care. Partly because it's just a lot easier to edit episodes that are just the two of us. So selfishly, it takes a lot less time. So I kind of like to have something easy thrown in there every once in a while. And sometimes I just want to talk to you guys. So that's what we decided to do today. We had a couple ideas of things we were going to talk about. And then we were like, you know what? We're just going to talk about life. So that's all we got.
Yeah, I feel like that's fitting. Plus, this is honestly the most common piece of feedback that we get, which we love, is that our audience members will message us via email or on Instagram, and they'll reply and say, like, we feel like we're in the room with you having the conversation. And that's really nice feedback to get. So thank you for that.
Totally. Yeah. And if you guys haven't already done so, if you love our podcast, would you please give us a rating and review? That would be fantastic. It helps us out. I personally would like to see our numbers increase to a specific number by the end of the year. So you guys, if we don't get that number, I'm going to threaten you and we're quitting. So if you don't want us to quit, share the podcast with a friend or with a coworker or a family member, anybody you think that needs to hear it. And maybe we won't quit.
And we read every single one of those reviews. So thank you for those that have taken the time, 5 minutes that it takes to leave us a review.
It doesn't even take that long. You know what? You could just say, good job. And that would take you 30 seconds to type that and to click the 5 stars. And that's all we need. You don't need to write us a novel. You can just say, hey. That's all.
Hey. Yep.
Okay, so we are currently we're like halfway through the year as we're recording, July 10th to be exact. I don't know when this is going to come out, but maybe in about a week or so. 2 weeks. I think in 2 weeks it'll be out. Probably, yeah. I think I'll get this one ready soon. So halfway through the year, and I feel like after you turn 21, everything just passes you by so fast.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, Dad told me this years ago. But I feel like it's always
ago?
Like 20 years ago he told me this. Yeah. 20 years ago. So I feel like every year we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's a month into the new year. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 6 months. Like time just flies at this age and it's not always super fun. So what's been going on in your life, Gabs?
Oh, we're starting with me? Okay. Well, at time of recording, I am in a long-term I'm at a friend's home, but in a long-term stay in San Diego, which is pretty much like my intro experience, I would say, to moving here and relocating, which is a really big deal because I am just kind of leaving, like, not just as necessarily my old home and my family, because we have family here as well. Our extended family is in this area, leaving that behind. But I feel like a big part of me is truly grieving because I don't think this is talked about enough. And one example that I can use to kind of just convey maybe a little bit of the grief that I'm experiencing. And I don't know if you experience this yourself, Nicole, because you've obviously gone through those stages because you're ahead of me and you're older than I am. But you know that identity shift and the identity death that happens even from like being a single woman to getting engaged, being engaged, becoming married, having children for the first time. I don't think that identity death and the grief that you experience is talked about enough. And I'm certainly in that like season, but it's also really exciting because the space in which I'm at, I'm just playing with the energy of how it feels, what it would be like to be here, what my business would look like running it being run out of this space where we could potentially record for the podcast and just kind of really seeing what's around. Something that I think is really interesting about it is that, and I've shared this before on the episodes or a couple episodes, probably astrocartography, check that one out, that cities can have their own big three in astrology. They can have their own like specific sun sign. And San Diego is an Aries. Aries represents
Oh.
strategy. It's the beginning. Yep. It's the forefront of the zodiac. It's a very, I don't want to say innovative, but it's funny. I was listening to Queen Mother's podcast today. It was so good. Check it out, guys. The Solid Living with Nikki Novo. And she was talking, she had a friend on. I was speaking to Addiction, Maria, and she was talking about how she relocated from Miami to San Diego because it was the most common, like it was the most similar environment to
Mhm.
Miami. And I was like, oh my gosh,
It
it
is. Yeah.
totally is. And
I've
for
never
me,
been to
it's,
Miami, but I could imagine just the beachy coastal vibe.
do you remember when I messaged you? This was like 10 years ago at this point, and I went to a rave in Miami, and then our sister and best friend did not want to go out. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to this with or without you guys. And I'm so glad I did because Avicii was performing, and then a couple years later, he ended up passing. So it was really special to go see that.
Mm.
But yeah, just the vibe here. It's really like, it kind of reminds me of like a blend of like LA, Miami meets Hawaii in a way. It's a coastal city. It's got good energy. And so all this to say, I'm just playing with the identity or the possibility of moving here long term later on this year. And I had acupuncture last week before I came because I like to, well, one, I like to do it monthly, but I know when you're going through transitions, your body can physically show, like it can physically express that. And because I'm going through such a transformation in all areas of my life, I'm also in a personal, we're both in a personal year nine in numerology. My stomach hasn't been digesting food the same way. And usually, when you go through a transformation of sorts, your solar plexus is directly related to your digestion. So sometimes, you know, your food isn't like, it just doesn't come out the same as it used to, I guess, guys, if I'm being completely honest. But I can tell that. And she had hit in acupuncture, she had hit the specific grief points in your meridians because your body represents different emotions, or it can really, you can literally get point down to the points that represent your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your dad, grief, new beginnings, just anything. Like there's literally specific meridian points that will represent what you're going through. And she hit all of the grief points on my body, and I was like so spicy. Like it was like it's a quick
Did
pain,
it
but it was
hurt?
painful. Yeah, it
Oh.
hurts. Yeah, so but it's good because it's like releasing and it's really just like orienting the energy. But all this to say, I just feel like I'm about to go through a big shift, whether or not I do end up moving here, because I had thought about other places in California as well. And I was sitting on the couch just rotting, which, by the way, thank you, Gen Z kids, for that term. That is great. Rotting. Just learned that one. And I had that thought, and I know it was a download. It wasn't me because it was like a full body reaction to it. It's like you better get used to the idea of like not having as much time to yourself anymore because you're not going to be single for much longer. And I was just like, what? Like, and I messaged Nicole and Brianna in the group sister message that string that we have, text message string that we have, and I sent the picture of the place, and it's like the perfect bachelorette pad.
It's super cute.
Super cute. And these two were like, I want to be single again. And the other one was like, I want to be single again. So I'm just
Yeah.
really appreciating and like
Not that we don't
being
love
in
our
the moment.
husbands
Right. Yeah. It's just like, it's like a season that you just
and
don't
our
fucking
kids.
get back. Yeah. But it's like, like it's been, I think my takeaway and my lesson from this has just been to be present and to stay as grounded as possible because time really does go by so quickly. I mean, it's like it's fucking July. So that's where I'm at, but all good changes, all necessary changes, and I'm really excited to see what the second half of the year brings. And we're going to get into this after Nichole shares a little bit about where she's at. But I'm telling everyone from an astrological perspective, please enjoy July. Please enjoy August. Please enjoy a good part of the first part of September. Because after September, we're going into just a reality that we're going into like almost, I don't know, maybe New World Order. It's the best way I can describe it. And life's going to look a lot different from that point forward, and it's not going to be the same. So it's much like it's not the same energy slash astrological transits that we experienced in 2020, but it's the most similar year and the last maybe 10 that I can use as an example to describe what kinds of shifts we're going to enter given the astrological transits that are beginning in 2025. So that's where I'm at. What are your thoughts, Nichole? And what do you think about the vibe shift? It's a vibe shift. That's what 2025 is.
I don't know. It just doesn't feel like the vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. No comment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see. Oh, where are we at? Oh gosh, I feel like a lot has been jam packed into 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because yeah, I started a new job almost exactly 6 months ago. And
Wow.
that new job was kind of like a job I just applied for on a whim. And then I almost wasn't going to take it because I was waiting for another job to start. And I'm so glad I did end up taking it because it's actually been exactly what we kind of wanted for the family and what I wanted, excuse me, what I wanted personally for myself. And yeah, so I was supposed to have the summer off, and then they asked me to work summer school, which was only half days. So I was like, sure, why not? And I don't feel too like stressed or overwhelmed. So that's kind of nice to have like
Yeah.
extra money coming in. So the new job has definitely been really good because it definitely aligns more with my husband's schedule, with my son's schedule. They already have a schedule that really aligns with each other. So I was just the one always throwing everything off. So it's kind of nice now to be on a similar schedule with them. So that's been really good. That's been probably one of the most positive things this year, I would say, just because the last job was literally soul sucking and this job is not. So
Yeah.
that's been good. And then I've, let's see. Gosh, I was talking to my hair girl yesterday. She'd messaged me. She always checks in to see how I'm doing with the IVF stuff because she also had to go through a similar situation because we're about the same age. And for her, it was going to be her first. She didn't have any children previously like I do. And so she always checks in with me, and which is, so nice because I don't know anybody else that has gone through IVF or like anybody really close to me that can like kind of walk me through and tell me what things are, or even just like understands. And I was telling her yesterday, man, it's been like a year because we started this process back in July, even though we didn't do our first egg retrieval until September, but the process started in July. And here we are a year later, still no baby, but getting closer. But it's just been such a fucking process. And let's see, we still have, I don't even know how much longer it's going to be before we can move forward with all of that because I need to have surgery and they're waiting on me to have an MRI before I can have the surgery. Like, it's just been like thing after thing after thing, which is so annoying. And yeah, I would definitely not recommend IVF to anybody. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but you know, when you don't have a lot of other choices, I mean, I guess the other choice and option would be adoption, but that's not where we're at yet. So I wouldn't wish it on anybody. If you can, you know what? In this case, I'm all for teen pregnancies. If you can go and have kids when you're like
Oh,
20,
no.
you know what? It might be a good idea. It might be a
There is
good idea.
there is a whole nother slew of results that come about with being a teen parent.
Yeah,
So
well, there's a whole slew of results that come from not being a teen parent, and I don't know that it's any easier or better. So anyway, if you can have kids when you're young, do it. Don't wait till you're 40 or older. So let's see. Yeah, that's been fun slash not fun. What else has been going on? Okay, so for our birthday, my
mhm.
husband. Okay, so did we talk about how much of like pressure it was to have like a party or just to have a birthday when it falls on a weekend? Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't, but you did mention about going to Miraval, but we didn't talk about the birthdays.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of pressure having a birthday on a weekend because everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you going to do?" And
Mhm.
it's a lot. So I was like, I don't want to people, I don't want to entertain anybody. I don't want to be around a lot of people. I think with this whole like IVF journey, I've been even more like antisocial. Like I have friends that have been trying to get together and I'm just kind of like, eh. And I don't want to, I don't know. I just don't want to socialize lately. And I just want to be at home in my little shell. And so he found this place called Miraval in Arizona in Tucson. And it actually was so great because Maria, who's been on our show before, lives out there. So we got to hang out with her for,
I was so jealous.
she
I'm
was so
still
jealous.
jealous. Still very
She
jealous.
she and her husband actually drove out to Miraval to pick us up because so the great thing with Miraval is they provide all the transportation too. So they picked us up from the airport and you know, in like a shuttle, and then they shuttle you back to the airport on the day you leave. So everything's all taken care of. Like you don't have to do anything. So we didn't have a car or anything because we were picked up by shuttle. So Maria and her husband drove out to Miraval to pick us up and for us to go to dinner. And I didn't put two and two together, but my husband is usually really good at doing that. And I wasn't feeling good when we landed. And he was pointing out, he's like, you get like elevation sickness because anytime we've gone somewhere where we're in a higher elevation, I do not feel good. I get a headache. That happened when we were in some part of Spain that was a really high elevation and it messed me up. So he's like, yeah, you get like, you get like elevation sickness. Like if I'm not at sea level, like I'm not okay. So I was like, had such a headache. But anyway, they picked us up. We went to dinner and we've talked about it before. So my husband's a Capricorn. Maria's husband is a Capricorn. You guys, they showed up. Well, me and Maria too. Okay, so we all showed up dressed like twins. Okay, my husband and Maria's husband were dressed like twins from like the shirt down to the shoes. Maria and I were also dressed like twins. We were both wearing like black dresses, and we were kind of laughing like, "Oh, look at us! We're all twinning over here without planning it," you know. Anyway, they ordered drinks. These guys ordered the same drinks. They both ordered old fashions because they're classy men. And then they order food. They got the same food. Maria looked at their plates and I looked at her and I was like, yeah. So anyway, very similar. It was funny because I told my husband after, I said, man, me and Maria have always talked about how similar you and her husband are. And he's like, you mean like before today? And I was like, yeah, like before today, before you guys have met. And he started laughing. He thought that was hilarious. So anyway, that was funny. But it was so nice. Maria and her husband, drove all that way to pick us up, and then they treated us to dinner, and that was so nice of them. And now my husband's like, well, we have to come back because now I owe him dinner.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
he just wants to go on a date with him. So anyway, and that was that was fun. So okay, so back to Miraval. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, because I didn't know either, it's like a digital free, wait, device
Space?
free
Yeah.
location. Yeah, so
Device free, yeah.
they don't want you to have your phones. There's certain spots in the facility or on the grounds that you can have your phone if you need to make calls. And so I did. I had my phone to check in on my son because he was with his dad for a couple days, and then he was with you guys for a couple days. And so I wanted to like check in with him. So I would FaceTime him from wherever I could there. And then I had to edit. So I had my laptop. Oh, and and I released like my first like product, like a digital product, my subconscious like reprogramming bundle. And I was still finishing it on the plane and doing my sales page in the shuttle on the way to Miraval, trying to get everything done. And so then I dropped it, did one story about it, and then I disappeared for days. So, anyways, apparently that's how I do business. I just drop
Yeah.
something and then I disappear.
Yeah.
So it was device free, and again, I wasn't super device free, right? Like I was still checking in and doing the editing, but for the most part during the day, you don't have your phone. And then on the way to the back to the airport, so we were there for 3 nights. And on the way to the airport, I like pulled out my phone. And then so there was this young girl in front of me. She had gone with her parents. She was probably in her early 20s. And she was just like scrolling, like in and out of apps, like not even doing anything in the apps. It was almost like, um, oh my gosh, it looked like an addiction, right?
Yeah.
It was just like,
I
I'm
was
not
just
even going
thinking
to do
that.
anything in this app. I just need to open it. But then I saw all these pictures that she was like scrolling through that she had been taking like on the grounds too. And I was like, oh, that's not what we were supposed to be doing. So anyway, I don't think she really followed the rules. But I got so overwhelmed just sitting behind her. And then I was trying to listen to a podcast because I hadn't really listened to podcasts in a few days. And I had to turn it off. I was like, I can't take this in right now. Like, this is too much for me. And on the airplane, I think I maybe listened. Actually, I don't even think I did listen to a podcast. I listened to a couple episodes because a girl that I like listening to hadn't posted any for a while. And so she had dropped a few. So I was catching up with her. But I did notice since then, I get so overstimulated by technology in a way that I've never had happen before. And it was really interesting to me because I kept thinking, man, what if I would have really not had my phone or not had my laptop? Because my husband had said, oh, you're not taking your laptop, right? And I was like, well, I have to. I have to edit. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's like a device free location. And I was like, well, I got work to do.
Mhm.
So I just keep thinking if I had really gone device free, how much more I would have been affected because I was really affected by those 3 nights. And even so, I usually like to listen to podcasts at like 1.25 speeds, sometimes 1.5, but not always. I haven't even been able to do that. I had to like go back down to just listening at regular speed because it's too much for me. And sometimes I've just been driving with like no music, no podcast, no book because it is almost too much. And it just made me think of like how bombarded we are with information all day long. And me, I'm somebody who bombards myself because I want to consume so much information. I want to listen to all the podcasts. I want to listen to all the books. I want to listen to music. I just want to do all the things as a Manny Gen. And I can't do that anymore. And it's really interesting to me how that shifted in such a short amount of time. So I highly recommend Miraval.
On points, guys,
On
on points.
on points if you can do points because yeah.
It's one of Oprah's favorite spots to go to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oprah, Ellen.
Oh,
Apparently
Ellen too.
Ellen
Mhm.
and Twitch were there before Twitch passed away. Yeah, I think the Real Housewives have been there. It's like
I think, yeah,
a
didn't they do like a trip
I
out
think they
there? Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they did. So
Um,
anyway, that was a really interesting realization for me that, oh, I can't consume as much as I have in the past.
Mhm. I think you got activated. I'd be curious what the ley lines, or if there's a ley line on the ground, or if they like blessed it because it's Indian land. If like something like that was going down, or if they just like consciously built the land in such a way where they have like, the feng shui done. Would not be
There was a
surprised.
monsoon when we were there,
Mhm.
but super cool. So, couple little things that stood out to me. There was a dead scorpion on the doorstep of our room that the cleaning lady took out, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Never seen one of those before." There was a wild boar when we were doing celestial yoga at the end of the evening, or at the end of the day in the evening, and a wild boar walked through when we were doing yoga. And Maria had told me, and the guy had also mentioned, he's like, "Oh, she doesn't have her babies, so we're fine." Because apparently, if their babies are there, they will like attack you. So, because the moms want to keep, people away from the babies. He's like, "Oh no, we're fine. Yeah, just kind of walk through our class." So that was really cool to see. I saw a cardinal just out in the grounds when we were there. So that was really cool. Let's see. What were some other things about it? They said it used to be a rehab for the rich and famous, and then they turned it into this wellness retreat. But they still have a rehab across the grounds.
Yeah.
But I think Kelly Clarkson likes to go there too, they said.
Do you like
Uh,
Kelly? I think is she a Cancer or Taurus? I
I
feel like
don't know
we've
what she is.
covered her. Hmm.
I don't know, but really cool. And it's like an all inclusive. So I mentioned the airport, shuttle rides, food, drink, everything's included except for alcohol. And then activities. So I did yoga, I did stretching, I did morning meditation, I did some really cool shit. I did a past life regression, which wasn't free. I did pay for that. And just there's some other things you can pay for. They have a spa, so if you want any spa services, you pay for that. But it's like they described it as like camp for adults because you're just doing activities all day long. I mean, they have them from like 6 a.m. until like 7 p.m., just activities all day long. You can hang out with horses if you want to. You can do archery. You can do walking meditations, hikes. Like there's so many things to do. They have classes on pendulums and like energy protection. They have so many things out there. So it's a little bit of woo woo and then a little bit of just kind of like that wellness. So definitely my vibe. I really liked it. I would love to go back again next year. And yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I was just thinking we need to cover now that you've done your regression, which we'd been talking about throughout several episodes on our show. We can speak to that now since we both have had experiences.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Hmm.
And that's all that's really been going on here. Well, okay, so that's kind of life updates. So, podcast updates. Last week we had like pretty big interviews. I think they were pretty like they were
Yeah.
people that we like wanted and maybe didn't I didn't think maybe that my person would say yes or like agree to it so quickly. And I don't know, did you feel that way about yours or did
No.
you know you were pretty like,
No.
"Oh, she'll come on."
Oh no. Yeah. I'm sorry. I felt the same way about it. I was
Yeah.
very like, oh my gosh, like, and I remember texting you and Brianna, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this was an immediate yes. I just kind of threw it out
Mhm.
there, be like, hey, like, if you're ever interested,
Yeah.
and it kind of just it makes me feel really good about the future pitches that we're looking to do in maybe quarter four, definitely 2025 of this year, since we're scheduled for a really good amount of time now. So yeah, we
Well,
just did
that's
the
if
pod.
we make it to 2025 because I already threatened people that we were going to quit today. So if
Uh,
they don't get our download numbers up to the number I want it to be, then you know what, guys? You may never hear these podcast guests in 2025. So.
and I have to agree with her, guys, because I feel the same way. It's a lot of work to do a podcast, and it's like I'm not trying to complain or anything, but it's again, it's like the spiritual journey, like the podcast, running a business. It is so much better if you don't know how much of a commitment it is, because you may not do it
Just
otherwise.
dive in
Yeah,
unknowingly.
yeah, yeah.
So I
Ugh.
think by the time this comes out, we'll have released one of those episodes
Yeah.
already.
Hmm.
So the person that Gabby pitched to was who you guys would have heard last week, which was Andy Eaton, and I don't know how to say her last name correctly. Is it
Almond.
Is Almond?
Almond. Mm-hmm. Wee
Okay.
wee girl.
Wee Wee Girl. So that was someone that Gabby pitched to. Not that long. Was it that
That
long
wasn't
ago?
like maybe, I think it was like maybe May, and we had
We did have
scheduled
to
April, May.
reschedule.
Yeah, and then it got pushed to July. And I'm just such a fan of her work, and I was listening to her podcast today, and she actually had an astrologer on that I had learned from when I first started my journey. And it's just like, it was kind of this, and I think we even spoke about this on the show, how this industry specifically and like this circle, it's actually a lot smaller than you would
It
think.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so everyone kind of knows everyone, and I remember Queen Mother telling me that in my training. She's like, "Yeah, like everyone knows everyone," and I was like, "That's so interesting." So, and it's true, but it was really just cool to just like speak to her. She's so smart. She's a 1-3 Manny Gen, and she was talking about curation, and I just really appreciate and admire like the time that this woman has invested to learn it all, because
It's
I
a
think that's
lot.
some totally, and I think that's something that like as a generator, like this is one of the approaches that we take per human design in business is like we want to know everything, like we just dive all the way in and then we move on to something else. And I think that the details that you can speak to really make for a comprehensive understanding, so you can articulate that and educate someone else if someone were wanting to ever learn from you. um, and I think she's done that really well. And so when she said yes, I was really excited about that, and I told Brianna and Nicole in the text messages that we share together. And yeah, it was just really cool to see that, and to see her come on. And it makes me hopeful for the future if we make it to 2025.
You hear that, guys? If
Uh-huh.
no pressure or anything on you guys, but
Mm-hmm.
and then it was funny because we were looking because I mean we both listen to the podcast anyway, but I think you had gone back into like maybe some older episodes and
Yeah.
you had seen
Mm-hmm.
that she had recorded with the person that I had pitched to, who we recorded with the very next day. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was really cool. Like, oh, these two have
Yeah.
also worked with each other, and I think that had been probably like years ago.
Yeah.
And so that episode will probably be coming out next week. So the person that I asked to come on was Marley Rose Harris. And she is super young. She's like 30, but she's done a lot for 30. Like she's a millionaire. She has lived in several places around the world. She owns this like beautiful villa in Bali. She is just like living her best like life, she wakes up when she wants, she goes and plays tennis when she wants, she has figured out how to like run her business like on its own, like she doesn't need to do a lot with it, which is I think the goal for a lot of people is, okay, how do I make money passively and not need to sit there for 8 hours every day. So that was
And it's
really
her
cool.
second business out of that. It's like your second or third. Yeah.
Her
It's not
second,
her
yeah.
first venture. Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. And so, yeah, I had just kind of one day I was like, "Oh, I'm going to ask her to come on." And yeah, right away she said yes. Her assistant got back to us and said yes. And then it just so happened, so there was a big time difference because she's in South Africa. So there was a big time difference. And it was probably going to be one where I was maybe going to have to do it alone because of the difference. And then we were able to do it at 7 a.m. on 4th of July, which was super early, but I mean, it worked out, right? We both had the day off, and it was kind of nice because then I mean, for me, I just got my day started. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those were some really fun interviews that we did recently. And yeah, I think it just kind of speaks to also the fact that maybe we have these like ideas in our head of, oh no, this person wouldn't want to, or this person wouldn't want to, but they do. Like, I think a lot of people just kind of want to get out there. I know Marley said in the interview that we did, she's like, if I could just go on podcasts like all day, every day, like I would love that. Where people just want to get out there and share what they know or just kind of get their name out there. So I kind of think that maybe more people that we think wouldn't say yes, maybe
Mm-hmm.
might, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get the word out there. So shoot your shot, guys.
I was just telling you who I want to shoot my shot to.
Oh yeah, the honey
Should
girl.
we just shoot the honey girl? Oh yeah. So
Yeah, do it.
um I purchase and use frequently vaginal products that you can get at Target.
These
They
poor
go by
men.
the honey pot. And I thought it was so cool because um on it's like an inscription on the side and the logo and the branding, and it says, she's a woman. It reminds me of my experience when I had my bleed out in the hospital, where the male doctor was pretty much gaslighting me, and I'm like, I know exactly what this is, even when I was in like the state I was in. But anyways, she had gone to doctors to heal her issues down there. I won't get into it, but she said that after unsuccessful attempts, that her ancestor in a dream came to her and shared with her the blueprint as to how to heal her vaginal issues. And that's what inspired her to start her business. And so I'm scoping her out on Instagram, guys, and I would love to pick her brain, just from like a spiritual business perspective, as to how she created the brand that she has and the products that she has and how she has it in Target. Because when you pitch to organizations like Target, Whole Foods, it's like a whole thing. And I was listening to this other influencer um, talk about how she was pitching her product to Whole Foods and how it was really challenging, because, they're doing a comprehensive check as to what they might possibly sell in stores, because then their brand is also affected too, if you think about it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that maybe, I don't know. I think for me, I've always thought, oh, this person has so many more followers than, us, or they're at this number and they're not going to want to do it. And I don't think that matters as much as I thought it did, because I remember hearing before, if you're going to pitch to anybody, make sure that, if you don't have as many followers as they do, you have at least 10% of the number. And I remember thinking, well, gosh, like we don't have that many, so we can't really pitch to that many people. And that like hasn't been, I don't think that's been the case. So
Mm-mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
that person out on the date that you want to ask out people. They might
Yep.
say yes,
You never know.
or they'll say no. I don't know. And I think, I mean, yeah, that's kind of it. I think those are like the big updates for the year. It's like, okay, halfway through the year, where to go and what do we want to have the rest of the year look like?
Mm. Should I get into dates for the astrology?
Oh, yeah, she wants to talk
I mean, I don't really
astro.
want to. I just feel like instead of us just talking about ourselves, we could add additional value to the astrology of it
What are the
into
dates?
August 19th.
Oh, you were talking about that earlier. Does that
Hmm.
mean we should just stay in bed?
I don't know, but it's the first part of a three-part story. And the second part of that story is Christmas Eve, December 2024, 24th of 2024. And then the third part of that story is next summer, 2025. And pretty much just pay attention to maybe stories that are told, themes, new beginnings, anything that happens that is of particular importance, because I can almost guarantee that, because Jupiter is scoring Saturn, so Jupiter is going to be in Gemini and Saturn is in Pisces. So look to where Gemini and Pisces fall in your chart. It's just one of those transits that I've been eyeing, and it's kind of like the first part, second part, and third part of the whole comprehensive story within a year, less than a year at that. And the other dates to look forward to.
So those are
November.
dates we don't want to look forward to, right? Those are kind of like
They
dates that are
could be
like,
really good dates. I mean, like, I was talking to one of our girlfriends. I was like, "You're going to be engaged," and I was like, "Oh, it's going to be August 19th." And then she told me when she's going on vacation with her boyfriend, and it's August 16th to the 19th. And I was like,
mm.
"Oh, so it could be good things too. It really just depends on how it affects your chart personally." But that's what I'm saying. Like, really enjoy the summer and be present and just ground, because the astrology is really calm until that point. And then after that, it's really going to just kind of make a shift, because come September and October, that's when eclipse season begins. And eclipses are just, I think I've talked about that enough, but those are course correctors. They're just major points in the sky to consider, and just periods of time. And then November 20th, that is when Pluto goes into Aquarius for 20 years. No, it's not going back into Capricorn, and that's right around election season. And so I'm really looking to just what the vibe is for the fall, because I'm like, what is this? What is this? So that's kind of what I've just, those are hotspots that I'm suggesting and recommending to the people that I'm reading for.
I don't
And it
like
could be
any of
really
that.
positive too, guys. It could be really positive.
Well, it could be, but realistically, what might it be?
It depends on your chart.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's what the astrology has to say for the second half of this year. Yeah, 2024 is just kind of like a weird year. Next year, though, I will be doing a year ahead workshop again. I haven't decided on the date, November or December of this year. I'm thinking about reading everyone's chart that is in attendance, just like quick hits, major themes for the upcoming year. And I think that's what I got for you guys. Oh, and we'll probably do a predictions episode too. I think we'll probably look into the
Like in December.
2025. Yeah, just like
Oh
year
my gosh,
ahead.
will that be our last episode if I predict that this is the Spiritual Sisters last episode. Bye.
Mic drop.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I
Oh,
really had a good time putting together the subconscious reprogramming like audio bundle. That was really fun for me. And just to kind of like dip my toes into that, and I think maybe eventually I want to do more of that, but I haven't decided exactly what that might look like yet. So you
yeah.
guys will hear it when I figure it out.
We talked about, I know we want Miss Manifestation Babe herself, but we talked about also what we want to do for the second half of the year with respect to the podcast, or maybe who we want to have on, aside from the download numbers, if we continue into 2025, guys. Um, so yeah, what are you looking forward to, Nicole, with respect to the podcast and our goals? We're speaking it into existence. Ready, set, go.
Getting our numbers up, and that's really it. I think for me, there isn't anybody that I want to ask to come on. I think I got my person right now, unless somebody else comes on my radar that I'm like, ooh, I want to ask them. But
Mm-hmm,
for the
mm-hmm,
most part, I think that was like, oh, okay, cool. This is someone I wanted to come on, and they said yes, and they did. So I don't have any guests in mind that I want to call in. So I don't think
mm-hmm,
I can't identify anybody.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I have very many goals.
I'm excited because I'm almost positive I have a yes on this. But my astrology teacher, I often get I get the question asked like who I studied with, and I studied with several. But primarily it was Brandon and Angel of the Spiritual Gaze, and I know they're on a podcast right now, but Anne Orderly is my astrology teacher, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be on in the next couple of weeks, so that'll be exciting too.
Hmm.
But in terms of like podcasts, definitely the numbers. Um, just elevation and evolution, just kind of just taking it to the next level and maybe learning a little bit more about like what that looks like, maybe learning from other podcasts as to like maybe what they're doing that increases their numbers. Is it the visual? Is it the aesthetics? Is it the social media? Is it the TikTok? I really don't know, but just continuous growth and more promising signs that it's worth continuing into 2025 and onwards.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think my goals are just more personal. I know I
Hmm.
definitely want to keep doing. I like lately my body has been like yearning for breath work, and I did a couple breath work sessions. I think last week, like back to back days, because I just my nervous system just feels so dysregulated lately. And I mean, that could be to anything. Like, that could be due to a number of things, right? I mean, I've had 4 rounds of IVF at this point. The hormones that are going like in and out of my body, and just all of the things that have to be done like in between. And then, I was like super heavy into, working out in the gym, but that's something that like you're not able to do when you're doing the IVF. And so that messes with my anxiety and my, like my nervous system and just overall. So, I think for me, like personally, I want to make sure that I'm adding more like breath work into my days and my weeks and my routine, because who knows what's to come, especially with all of this stuff.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I know we talked about like podcasts and your personal goals, but something that came up at the beginning of the podcast that I didn't speak to, but I was like, wait, this is a perfect time to mention it, is that I actually really scaled back on my personal business goals for Agua. And I was like, oh no, like you have to invest time into your personal life. And I feel like I'm going to continue that cadence for the remainder of this year because sometimes, guys, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The systems can run if it's running, and then you can give yourself some time and then come back to it,
It's
because you don't always
almost
have yeah, you don't always have to be going, going.
I feel like for me, it's almost the opposite where I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna, like, pour into a business and get that going." I just don't know what that might look like or how yet, but I don't have much of a personal life. So, which
Wait,
is
let me think
fine that
about
like
that.
I don't want a personal life lately. Like I I feel like
Actually, that is true.
actively trying to like avoid people, right? And my husband I think is understanding of that right now, so he hasn't been like pushing it so much. So lately I'm like I don't want a personal life. I don't want to see people. I don't want to be around people. It's like too much. And so I'd rather focus on like learning and building. So
Mhm.
I think I'm the opposite of you right now.
Look at us.
The yin, what are they? The yin to the
Yin to the
yang?
yang,
Yang?
yang, 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 same
Mhm.
thing.
Someone
Southern
called it
Cali
yang.
Yeah, they did. And do you notice how Southern Californians emphasize the I's or the A's and the E's in certain words? At least
Yeah,
I
we're
do.
so dumb. Yeah, we're so dumb. No offense to other Southern Californians, but we are guys, you know it.
It's a different
Anyway,
world out here.
yeah. So we hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Andy because that was one that Gabby was like super I was super excited about it too though because I really like her. So that was
Mhm.
like a fun one. And then I don't know, it's almost like when we ask the person, it's like more exciting for us like even though it's like both of us, right? But it's like, oh, this
Mhm.
was like my person, right? It's like asking someone on a date and them saying
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
for
fun.
Marley, I was sitting there and I was just like, I was a sponge. I was listening, I was absorbing. I was like, okay, she's done this, and then it was really cool. I was actually getting psychic messages as she was speaking. It was really cool to just see like the energy of like where things are going for her, and her as a female in the space that she's in, because there's not as many females as you would think doing the type of work that she's doing.
Mm-mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and again, like she's so young that I'm like, I think that's why I'm so like fascinated by her because I'm like, man, you've done a lot for your young age, and yeah, like I want to do some of those things in my not as young age. Like teach me, you know, and it's so weird
Yeah.
to be like, teach me young person, but that's how I feel.
I actually don't know that I feel like you do a really good you have a good relationship with that though. Like I've never seen you have an issue with that, because you don't mind asking me for help or for Branna. Like that's not something that your ego has an issue with.
No, no, and I married a
Mhm.
younger man too, so
Mm. This is true.
yeah. So anyway, okay, you gonna do a card pull for us?
I'm pulling from the traditional Rider Waite deck. It's the OG baby. I ordered this one off of Amazon, but I do not recommend ordering decks off of Amazon, friends.
Why?
Just, I mean, you totally can, but because it's oftentimes always usually cheaper. Because like you're just supposed to connect with the deck, like touch it,
Well,
see
you
which one
know, the
calls to
one
you.
time I
I was
connected with
knew
the
you were gonna say
deck and
that.
touched
Knew you were gonna
one,
say that.
I picked up something that was like not good. What is it?
Yes, Nicole has also talked about that on the podcast. Okay, this is so interesting. So it's the Ten of Pentacles reversed, friends. The Ten of Pentacles, the Pentacles in the tarot, Pentacles that represent Earth energy. They represent grounded energy. They represent money and finances oftentimes. And the Ten of Pentacles, I fucking love this card. If it comes up in the sense of just like anything, but like if you're doing a spread related to finances, it's solid. Like
Even in
it's
reverse?
well, I was getting there.
Hmm.
So for the reverse, I was thinking about this and it felt like a download, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. So we are in an 8 year in from a numerological standpoint. So you add the 2, 2, and the 4 together in 2024, and 8 represents Leo energy. It's the strength card in the tarot.
Lame.
It represents finances. Just wait for our Leo season should be out by
Oh
this
no, we're
point.
gonna skip Leo season. Fuck that. They don't need an episode. The
Just the
Leo
men. We
males
love the
don't.
women.
Yeah, we love the
Yeah.
women.
Love the woman. But finances, money, just what's the word? Applying discernment to the relationships with finances that you have, especially for the remaining part of the year. I know in the US we're going into election season, I think would be very mindful and wise to do. I know easier said than done, because we just kind of live in a different world today, and it's not always the easiest to come by just basic needs depending on what your situation is. But it just is kind of a card to remind you to just apply a due diligence with respect to finances and resources and just whatever means mean to you. It doesn't necessarily always have to be, money, but what does just having anything, what is of importance, and applying that due diligence to things that are of importance to you. Kind of like budgeting. It's almost like budgeting energy. Budget your energy.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. Right away, guys. We'll link that in the show notes for you guys to purchase if you're interested.
And yeah, check out, if you haven't already checked out last week's episode with Andy, check that out. And then make sure you guys check out next week's episode with Marley, because I think those were a couple of our like big ones this year. And we've had some big ones that we were excited about. Like Common Mystics was this year, right? We did them earlier this year. Or was that last year?
I think they agreed last year and then we situated it for this year. But then also I was really excited about Taylor Page. She's been very much someone that I've learned from. Queen Mother came on last year, right? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it was last year. In December.
I don't remember. I can't remember dates now.
Everything just blurs. This is the kind of year that it's been.
Yeah. And I don't follow our podcast, so I can't go and look at our I removed that from my library. I'm like, this is not one that I listen to anyway, so let me take it off.
Yeah.
I listen when I edit. I don't need to listen after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. See you guys later. Help us get our numbers up.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.